The spread across England and Wales has been fairly rapid. You can see from the map with the coloured squares how it sort of blew over East Anglia and then gone to sort of the reddish darker colours, so the later years over where we are. The first actions that were taken were the infected trees from nursery stock were removed and destroyed, but it did escape into the wild. And the first recorded cases on Anglesey, 2014. That doesn't mean it wasn't here before, but that's probably, that's when we started seeing the infections. And you can see with the map of Anglesey, you can see the apparent spread of it. I say apparent because it's down to people recording it. But it's now widespread. Everywhere I've been in North Wales, from the tip of the Llyn to right up in the mountains, I've seen signs of Ash Dieback. So it was a pandemic disease and it's now endemic. So it's here to stay. The photo you got there is of a tree just down the road. That was healthy in 2018. I noticed infection in it 2019. This is a photo from June 2020 where it should really be starting to flush and it looks pretty dead. If you look at it today, it's dead. So it's spread by tiny spores, which are easily transported by cars or in the wind along roads, or just in the wind generally. There's no cure, so we can't do anything to stop it. The research says it will infect at least 95% of ash trees. I've seen figures banded around saying 95 to 98%. It can kill an entire tree in one season, and a large tree at that. It makes the timber brittle, so branches break off, and it allows other pathogens to get in, especially honey fungus, which it's a rot which takes the strength out of, especially out of roots. And as such, it can be difficult to deal with. There have been quite a few near misses with people felling ash trees and getting bits fall out and hit them. There's a horrible picture which is banded around with somebody with blood on their face. So the trees may need to be pruned, pollarded or felled. It's very expensive and it's dangerous. And the picture, well, there's an article which I found on the internet from Farmers Weekly, which highlights the fact that, if you've got a roadside tree, you need to do something with it. And it could cost you a lot of money to do that. And it's your responsibility as a landowner. And also the Arboricultural Association, their safe health and safety, they say avoid working at heights if you can. Try and work the tree from the ground. But the problem is that if you start to fell a tree and you're underneath it, then a lot of that material, because it's all fragile timber that's easily broken, is going to be falling down on you. I've seen some contractors who they say the best thing to do is you hit the tree with a big pole, so you shake it and dislodge any of the loose timber before you fell it. So if we go on to symptoms, there's loads of information out there on the internet. The ones I've highlighted here, they're the most, how to put it, the most honest ones. So the one from Forest Research is a government document. Sorry, there's two from Forest Research and there's one from the Tree Council. They're readily available, free to download. The classic signs, and this is sort of going from start of infection to full-blown dieback. So the first things that you'll see is the blackening of the leaf. So you get black spots and black blotches and the blackening of the leaf stalk. The next thing that you will see as the disease starts to invade the tree is where the fungus colonizes the tree, and you start seeing dead branches, which is why it's called dead dieback. And then you see diamond-shaped lesions, especially at branch unions. You see lesions at the base of the tree, so you can see the sort of flare of dark bark going up the stem of the tree. And then you can get secondary infection by honey fungus, so the roots are severely weakened. And then there's a picture which shows the what the decline looks like in percentage terms of the canopy. So these are the classic ones, but it's not always that easy. So these are from some photographs that I took last year. The first one, it shows a few black spots and a black edge on the leaf. And this is where the fungus has started its infection of that leaf. The one to the right, to the top, so that's the progression of the disease, and it does start on it spreads to the drip tips of the leaves. So as the spores fall on the leaf, they obviously get washed down the leaf and end up on the drip tip. And that's where the fungus can start the infection. And then you get the blackening and withering of leaves. So you can see that they are really black. This is in September, and they shouldn't look like that. The next ones, the next ones I've got here, one's from a hedgerow in May last year, and you can see sort of blackened, withered leaves. And I've shown one from the same time. It's not the same tree. It was the same time this year. That tree has got Ash Dieback, but it is really late to flush. So there's actually no sign of disease in that foliage of that tree. Ash doesn't like cold weather, but you can see the dieback in the crown of that tree, and you can see that it's starting to flush lower down the branches. Other signs that are less talked about, probably because it's something that you can confuse, is a retention of the keys, so retention of the seed. And if you see ash seed on a tree in August that's brown, then it is a sign of Ash Dieback. And you can see the other picture, you can see the dieback starting on the ash keys. When the ash keys start to ripen, they don't ripen in that fashion. It's the whole seed ripens at the same time, so it turns brown at the same time, whereas that one's turning brown, black at the end of the keys. And then in winter, it can be quite difficult. So the picture there from February 2018, this is from my garden, and the ash tree that you can see on the sort of right-hand side of that picture, that has actually got Ash Dieback, and it did have it then. It's since gone. The other things that you can see, the one to the right, you can see the retention of ash keys on that tree. And it's the wrong time of year for them to be there. And you see stems which have obviously lost their bark, they've got blackening, they've got, there's something obviously wrong with it, and that's dieback. I stole a picture showing the typical sort of epicormic growth that you get from dieback, and also one which is showing it at the base of the tree. And this is from another pest that may be coming into this country, may not, who knows, emerald ash borer. I think it's been recorded once or twice, but been eradicated. So the message I'm trying to say with this is that the signs of dieback are when the tree looks like it's got mistletoe in it, and ash trees don't usually have mistletoe. So when it's losing its crown and it starts to flush much lower down, and it forms these quite strange pompons. So that leads on to what can we do? Some quotes there for you. I'm not going to read them, but basically the presumption is to fell ash trees. But we shouldn't really be doing that, because we'll be losing all of them. And we'll be losing the ones that may have resistance to the disease. So if you own a tree, you've got a legal duty to make sure that tree is safe. So Anglesey County Council say if you've got more than 50% of the tree that's died back, and that tree is in danger of falling on the road or on a house or on some property, then you should think about reducing or removing that tree. And there's advice out there. So there's Forest Research, there's the Tree Council, there's the trees.org, which is Arboricultural Association, and Anglesey County Council. So the things that we should be doing, we should maintain where possible. So if we've got ash trees that are showing signs of dieback, even if it's severe, if it's safe to leave them, then there's no reason to remove them. But if you want to get some financial return from the trees, you will be wanting to fell them. I do woodland work where owners do want to get some return, so I schedule the felling of quite a lot of the ash in their woodlands. But we should be maintaining that diversity in the population of ash trees, just in case some of them are resistant, and some of them may get infected and they may recover, and we don't quite know. We don't know what the full story is yet. And the other thing is we need to minimise impacts on species which depend on ash. And there's quite a range of species that do depend on it. So don't fell the tree unless you need to. Work out what the risk is. Is this going to fall, as I said, on a road or on a house? Assess how much dieback you've got, and did it have dieback severe? Did it show signs of dieback and then has recovered from it? And can you do something to mitigate against the risk of that tree falling? And is the tree a veteran? Is it large? Very large growing. Even if it's a roadside veteran, it may be better to prune or pollard it. This is an example from somewhere in Gwynedd of a tree that's been pollarded at some point many years ago, and you may think, if it gets dieback, then it may be worth pollarding that so that at least you keep the base of it until it starts getting other infections in. Then we've got regulations. So you may need a felling license. So there's various exemptions to felling licenses. You don't need one if it's in your garden. You don't need one if it's an orchard, a churchyard. And then the last one, which is a public space, such as land laid out as a public garden. And you don't need a felling license to pollard, prune, crown lift or crown reduce. And you're allowed to fell up to 5 cubic meters per calendar quarter, or 2 cubic meters if you're selling it. And if your trees are small, then you don't need a license. So it's usually 10 centimeters or less, is what we're talking of. So 4 inches. The trees may have a conservation, maybe in a conservation area. Beaumaris is a sort of conservation area. They may have a TPO on them. So you need to, if you don't know, then you need to ask the local authority. And then the last one on the list I put down is protected species, and it's Natural Resources Wales who deal with that again. So there may be bat roosts in a tree, and you may need to think about whether you need to get that tree inspected. And if it does have a bat roost in it, it doesn't prevent you from felling it, but it means you have to go through a license procedure. So recovery, how can we recover from losing 95% of the ash trees? One thing we can do is plant replacement species. And there are various lists out there. The ones that I've put together, there's one which is from a joint nature conservation publication, which suggests that oak is the most similar to ash. And on their list of 20 species, Douglas fir is probably the least similar. So we've got a range of species that we can replace ash with. And the other one that I put down is that one's trees that develop potential roost features. So that's things like holes and snags and tears and those sort of things. And this is from a publication that Henry Andrews did, looking at trees that had bat roosts. And the thing that sort of, there's not one species that is exactly the same as ash. So you should be looking at planting more than one species. The oak provides quite a lot, and beech provides quite a lot. So this supports the JNCC list. So the thing that we're looking at as part of this project is we might be calling it, what are we calling it? We're calling it Live Ash. And we're running it as a pilot project with COFNOD, which is the local biological record centre, helping us. And what we want people to do is to record healthy ash trees, not ones where you've seen disease, possibly ones where you've seen disease and they are showing signs of recovery. That may be very useful. And at the moment, this is a draft form. We are hoping to launch it the start of next month, possibly. We'll send an email out to people to let them know. You need to be registered with COFNOD to be able to do it. And there will be a box in the bit where you submit records for Ash Dieback, and it will come up with the species name, but there are things that we will require to be recorded on it. So the name of the place, where it is, what sort of land, whether it's on private land, public land, and whether the tree is a hedgerow tree or it's an individual tree in the field or a tree in the woodland. The number of them that you're recording, obviously your name, the date, and then some notes on it, and the girth, so that's the circumference of the tree, and you measure that at breast height. An approximation of the tree height, there's various ways you can do that. My favourite one is, if I haven't got a thing with me, is to use a stick the same length as my arm, and it's sort of equal triangles. And the last one is, does it show signs of dieback? And if people do enter a record, we will be asking them to return the next year and say whether that tree's got signs of dieback. So one of the things I forgot to put in there is that we will be running three sessions to show people in the field what Ash Dieback looks like, and running those from the local halls, local centres, and probably be doing that towards the end of this month or early next month. And we haven't quite set dates for that yet. And that's my talk for you. So